right, joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman Sara of California. She serves on both the House Foreign Affairs and Armed Services Committees. Thank you for being here. Let's start with what happened in the oil fields. Iran hit Saudi, Qatar, and Kuwait's refineries and infrastructure after Israel bombed South Pars in Iran, which is part of the world's largest natural gas reserve. President Trump, and let's just put out what he said. He said the U.S. did not know that Israel was going to do this. And then he said, in part, let's bring that up, no more attacks will be made by Israel pertaining to this extremely important and valuable South Pars field unless Iran unwisely decides to attack a very innocent, in this case, Qatar. And he goes on to say that he will then potentially bomb Iran's gas fields. What do you make of this back and forth? Because we've got reporting now from Jeremy Diamond saying that U.S. officials did know that this strike was going to happen by Israel.
Yeah, look, I think there's been a lot of talk and debate about the role Israel played in getting us into this war and, Bibi Netanyahu wanting to do regime change in Iran for decades. I think we aren't talking enough about the fact that now that we're in it, Israel and the Netanyahu government has been consistently taking us up the escalation ladder. And the U.S. and Donald Trump and the administration is just kind of going along with it. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing. I think it's very clear that the U.S. military objectives and the Israeli military objectives are not the same. Our military tells us that our objectives are very clear. They're about degrading Iran's military and nuclear capacity. The Israelis have spoken very publicly that their objective is regime change. And I think that, especially if you look at what we can live with for the Netanyahu government, it's about having a weakened Iran that can't attack them. For the U.S., it's about also making sure our Gulf partners are not going to get attacked, making sure the Strait of Hormuz stays open. We just have very different objectives. And so while this is a, joint and coordinated military campaign, we should not kid ourselves that actually we are going after and wanting the same things. And I think you're seeing that in the differing tactics.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth insists that the United States and Israel are on the same page. We just heard him say so during his press conference. I do want to ask you about him responding to a reporter asking whether or not the Pentagon has asked for $200 billion in supplementary money for the war in Iran, and he basically responded to that by saying that it takes money to kill bad guys. Would you be willing to vote for an extra $200 million for this war? Sorry, billion.
Not. I will not be voting for billion. Yes, absolutely not. I will not be voting for any supplemental for this war for two reasons. One, I think that this war is wrong. It's ill-advised. It's illegal. And sending more money only allows them to escalate further. But also because we've seen in multiple court proceedings that it is viewed that if you fund a war, it is viewed as de facto Congress authorizing the war. And I do not think this war should be authorized. And if they want it to be authorized, they need to come to Congress and actually explain what the plan is, what the timeline is, what end game they're trying to get, how we're getting out of this, what the off-ramps are that they're going to try and take. And they've not done any of that. We have yet to hear a real plan, and we're almost 3 weeks into this war. Not to mention the fact that $200 billion is the equivalent of the budget of the Department of Education, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Department of Housing and Urban Development combined. There are many, many things I would much rather us be spending that $200 billion on to bring down the cost of Americans living, not to prosecute a war that so far has not made any of us safer and has no real benefits that I can see.
I want to ask you about what we heard from Oman now. They were the intermediary, as you well know, in negotiations between the United States and Iran days before the U.S. and Israel struck Iran and begun this war. Oman's foreign minister says that this is Trump's greatest miscalculation and that the U.S. has lost control of foreign policy in what he called an unlawful war. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I don't think he's wrong. Look, I don't know if the Iranians were negotiating in good faith or not. But we do know they have signed an agreement before. We had a verifiable agreement that Obama got us into, that Donald Trump is who tore us out of. But also, if you just think like rationally, if you're the Iranian regime now, you have no incentive not to build a nuclear weapon. You have no incentive not to escalate further. Anyone who was a moderate within the regime, who was advocating for negotiating with the United States instead of a military operation, has been frankly made a joke of because of what the United States is doing. And so their hardliners have even more power within the government. Like, we're not getting anything. I don't see any benefit that we're getting from this military operation. What we're most likely to get is either a failed state in a really strategically important part of the world, or a civil war, or a much more hardline Iranian regime that has no reason, no incentive not to go full bore on their nuclear program.
Congresswoman Sara Jacobs, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I do appreciate it.